Marcus posted a thank you message to the Villa faithful for his welcome, and a certain Jadon Sancho replied with simply freedom.
He needs a hobby. Focus on your game.
It sounds very in line to what we already know about his character.
It's a fairly well-placed Brazilian source who suggested that some talks have taken place. There's been no club-to-club contact, but sometimes in this scenario, the club could be the last to know.
Yeah.
We need to get these people as far away from our club as possible.
Is there a crossover between criticism being too harsh and overcritical, or is it fair game for them because they've been there, they've done it, they've worn a T-shirt?
Every single week, it's berating.
But is it not every
frequently.
single week? Because that's a reflection of our team.
They're talking about basic standards, turning up for training on time, putting a shift
Which,
in,
of course, is
tracking
fine.
your man,
That's fine.
running.
If you hold the present hostage by the past standards, the future won't be able to flourish.
If we lose, does it show that we're actually worse than Spurs? Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, talkSPORT's Man United show, bringing you the latest news and reaction coming out of Old Trafford. And what a win it was on Friday, as Harry Maguire's last-minute header confirmed our place in the 5th round of the FA Cup, where we'll meet Fulham at home. Not an easy game. So it's back to winning ways at Old Trafford for Man United, although it certainly was not comfortable. Ruud van Nistelrooy claimed United was saved by an offside, and Maguire's last gasp winner definitely looked suspect. Now, there's never a quiet week at Manchester United. Right, so joining me to discuss is talkSPORT's Alex Crook, Angelina Kelly, and Ryan Statman Douglas. Big shout out to you. Get them stats ready.
Listen,
We've won a
I'm
game.
ready.
Yeah, I don't want to see stats about it was the first time that an offside goal, this, that, and it. I want positive.
Let me
stats.
just delete some of this over here.
Yeah, delete them. Alex, for you, was it a case of just getting by, just get to the next round? It wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, we're 1-0 down, but we are in the hat. When you look at some of the teams who have exited the competition, I don't know, tell you what, there's a chance again.
Yeah, it's opened up, hasn't it?
Yeah.
With obviously Liverpool crashing out spectacularly. Chelsea have gone, Arsenal accounted for by United. So it does feel like, even the way the draw has gone for the 5th round, Fulham, not the easiest team, but certainly not the most difficult tie United could have got either. So the quarterfinals are beckoning, but again, have to play a lot better, aren't they? I mean, it was another turgid performance. Some strange tactical decisions, I think, made by Ruben Amorim. You know, if you sign a new left wing back to bring balance to the team, why you would then play him on the right and keep Dalot in a position that clearly he's struggling with was a bit baffling
Do you
to
take
me.
his explanation on that in terms of, you know, Dorgu can play on the right wing, we want different options, we want different things, he's adaptable, he has played there, it's not like I'm putting him somewhere he hasn't played, or do you see it more as, like you said, Dalot's been struggling, so get him off of that side?
Yeah, I think it was overcomplicating it, and it only really improved when Garnacho came on and added a bit of attacking spark, and I think obviously Ryan's a massive fan, and it shows why United would have been mad to even entertain the idea of selling him. Joshua Zirkzee come off the bench and made an impact. His redemption story continues, and obviously Maguire, only 2 yards offside when he headed in against his old club, but as you say, the most important thing is to be in the hat, but the performance still needs to improve tenfold.
Yeah, and I mean, taking out that offside, because it was a big part of it, obviously no VAR. I mean, we got done by it against Arsenal in the round before, managed to get justice within the same game by chance, but if not, we probably would have went out to a Martin Odegaard penalty that never should have been. So the swings and roundabouts is football, as they say, but winning in that way, you know, big scenes, big H, you know, giving it this and that.
Yeah.
Is that a way to kind of start pushing a bit of a turnaround, a little bit of a galvanisation, or because, like Crookie said, the performance was so poor for large parts that it doesn't really give us momentum apart from, OK, we're in the next round.
Yeah. I mean, I know of fans who actually fell asleep in that first half, I'll be completely honest. Not myself, but I know of people. I think it was much needed. I think that it's a good win for the fans at Old Trafford. I mean, it's been beaten at home in 5 of the last 7 at Old Trafford. So it's good to do that. I think it's really hard because there's been so many false dawns. You almost don't want to get too excited. But I think for the fans that go there, that spend the money, that have been sat watching horrendous football, at least to come away with 3 points. You know, they were booing at half-time. Maybe for the fans, it's a good it's a good moment, but you just can't get too ahead of yourself with the way things are. And it was just, the first half was horrendous. It was just like you almost felt sorry for Leicester. Like, you almost felt like you could understand why Ruud van Nistelrooy was so frustrated. So, yeah, like Cookie says, they've got to play better than that because, yeah, you could say Fulham's an easier game versus some of the other clubs that you could have faced. But if they're going to have a good run in this cup, you can't come out and play like that.
No, and it's just the overall situation. I looked at us in the first half. I was laughing. I said to the guy next to me, I said, what are we? Like, look at the sheer lack of basic intensity, the way we move the ball. And, Dorgu looked like one of our better players in the first half. Not because he was doing anything amazing. He'd literally make a pass and say, instead of standing here looking at you, I'm going to run that way and make Luke Thomas have to come with me. We'd win a corner. He'd win a foul. Just
give it time. We'll grind that out of it.
Oh, honestly, did get infected. I mean, your boy, Alejandro Garnacho. Redemption off the bench. He had to save the day. He was really, really good when he came on, highlighting. I'm not trying to sort of take away his impact, but highlighting like how good he is coming in off the bench to change games.
Yeah.
And he did just that. Is it a priority for Amrim to get Garnacho in the side more, or to actually keep using this weapon of Garnacho off the bench?
Yeah, I think so. I think a combination of the two. There'll be a fluidity around Amrin's system and the players that we have as well. So whether it's Garnacho starting and being phenomenal, or not being so good at decision making, let's say whatever, or coming off the bench and making an impact, not quite working, but it worked against Leicester. Look, it can be a combination of the two, but. He did show this directness. I just think, as I've said before, this Manchester United DNA that we talk about so often, he's got it because he just attacks players. And as soon as he came on, he was relentless. There's been talk about he can't cross with his left foot, but he was putting plenty of balls into the box with his left foot, into dangerous areas, and ultimately changed the game. So I have to say, I had a little smirk on my face when he came on and performed like he did.
Yeah, for you, Crookie, Rasmus Højlund. Again, it's just not working, is it? Joshua Zirkzee came off the bench and scored.
In 3.5 minutes, by the way, he came on again. That was like very quick impact from him.
Quick impact.
Yeah.
I almost didn't feel comfortable when the ball came to him. It still felt a little bit like, oh, is he gonna? You don't even have trust in him to do something as simple as what he did do.
It's just that. Does Ruben Amorim need to pick one at the minute? Maybe Zirkzee in this moment, and just give one a little bit of confidence. Say, listen, 3 or 4 games, whether you play good, bad, or indifferent, get some confidence. And personally, it's kind of like a leading question because I think he should pick Zirkzee and say, you're playing 4 or 5 games, whether you do good, bad, or indifferent, and try and get some form. Because for me, I think Rasmus needs some time out to look at the things he's doing wrong because he's not improving.
No, I agree with that second point. I mean, he did play a part in the goal, didn't he? It was his flick that obviously was pushed back out to Zirkzee. The issue you've got if you're Ruben Amorim is that when Zirkzee has started games, he's not been able to influence proceedings as much as when he's come off the bench. So again, is he a better impact player than when he starts matches? But ultimately, it's difficult to have too much faith in either of them. I think, to be fair to Zirkzee, certainly he's been on an upward curve since that Newcastle game when he was obviously booed off by a section of the crowd. We've seen different options up front, and we've seen Kobbie Mainoo in the false 9. I do wonder maybe if Garnacho might be suited to that role. We've spoken about that before, so it's difficult because I don't think Amorim's got too much faith in either Højlund or Zirkzee, and clearly Højlund's confidence is through the floor.
I do still have this degree of sympathy for Højlund because he's not really in a system at the moment as it stands at its early stages where there's too many chances getting created. There's not too many balls coming into box. That wasn't happening until Garnacho came on. So look, I do feel for him, and if we look at it logically, there's a reason why Zirkzee is having more of an impact at the moment. It's because he's dropping deeper. And he can hold up the ball, and his aerial ability is all right as well. Those aren't Højlund's attributes. We've seen his hold-up play. He needs chances created for him, and so it's difficult. It's a bit all over the place at the moment. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I think he's got to do more individually, though.
He does.
I hear what you're saying in terms of like we don't create chances. Absolutely, I think we scored like 30 odd goals and conceded like 30 odd goals. We're about, we're not great. I get that. I'm not seeing any improvement in the individual from this time last year. I'm seeing him like repeat the same issues, engaging too quickly, just trying to fight. The touch isn't crisp, and especially when we're not a very good team, you're going to need someone up there who at least can just, because that's what the bar's fairly low with Dirks, and I get that, but I feel like he has a better feel for the game, a better technique. He can at least know when to take one, know when to take two, set somebody, spin, go on a hard. He's just got a better feel for the game.
Højlund looks like a young player struggling in a club that signed his potential. in an environment where we can't harness potential. You know, it just looks like a young player that's struggling at the moment, I have to say.
And that is down to the recruitment. He should never have been put in this position to be Man United.
We can go back to where it came from. However, like you said, I'm of the same line of thinking. I just think he needs a little bit of time away from it and maybe perhaps pick Xerxes ahead of him, get a couple of starts under his belt, see how he does, and drip feed Højlund back into the team, because he's clearly a player lacking confidence, albeit it was, like Crookie said, his flick that led to the goal. From a garnacho cross.
Yeah. You are buzzing.
I'm buzzing,
that was like the highlight of...
Yeah, that's all we get these days. That's all I can celebrate, is a garnacho cross.
And listen, you talk about someone, you know, mentality-wise, we've got a lot to talk about during the show, Ange, but just to finish off on Garnacho, you know, to keep locked in, to show some improvement. Ruben's been speaking glowingly about him. Couldn't commit to him staying because obviously the window was open, but he has been talking about how he's working hard. He understands that I just want to improve him. He understands that I'm just trying to do the best by him, and he's responding to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between a player with a mentality of a Marcus Rashford and the player with the mentality of an Alejandro Garnacho. I'm impressed. I know people are talking about, you know, should he be starting games? I think he's been, last season and parts of this season, he's been effective coming off the bench, and I think it's good that you're able to maybe balance the two. But yeah, I think it's been great. I don't think anybody wanted to get rid of him. I know you definitely didn't want to get rid of him, but I think it was a case of, you know, if it's financially, we have to make that decision. But I think overall, you know, fans will be happy that he stayed. He seems committed to Manchester United. He's taken it on the chin from the manager, and he's doing what is required. And that's all you can ask for, because we question these players' mentality time and time again. And this is somebody alongside maybe, you know, like an Amad Diallo, who seems to understand the assignment and wants to improve and let it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Performance wasn't the best, but listen, we're through to the next round. That's all that matters. Now, there's never a quiet week at Manchester United, and the last few days have brought up many a headline. We all saw Marcus Rashford make his debut for Aston Villa in their 2-1 win against Spurs. But there was more drama after the match, as Marcus posted a thank you message to the Villa faithful for his welcome, and a certain Jadon Sancho replied with simply freedom. Freedom, Crookie. Who does that look worse on? The fact that you've got these two players. Well, let's take Marcus Rashford out of it. You've got a player in Jadon Sancho who's expressing such basically distaste towards United to say...
He needs a hobby. He needs a hobby. Let's just call it what it is. He needs a hobby.
She just...
Focus on your game, mate. Sorry, carry on. But I just...
You can tell
he
what
needs to, painting, I don't know, maybe working on your actual footballing ability on the pitch, how to have a bit of... a bit of self-awareness, maybe. The self-awareness.
Do you think it's disrespectful?
I think it's an absolute joke. I don't get why he's so bothered. Why is he so bitter? Like, Ruben Amorim has done nothing to you. What has this club done that's so bad? At the end of the day, he's notorious for having this track record of not being committed, showing up to things late, not taking things seriously. It's not like he's done amazing at Chelsea. I mean, what was it in the FA Cup game they were losing? He was subbed off for a 19-year-old. I think stay in your own lane, focus on what you're doing. And I think, I just don't understand it. I don't understand where it's coming from. And it's like, even if he can moan about Erik Ten Hag was honest. He came out and was honest. Ralph Rangnick called it about Sancho, 3 years ago or something? And he said about mentality and all that type of stuff. Everyone who's worked with him seems to understand that there's something missing with Jadon Sancho. And I think you're still on the Man United books. Yeah, there's this obligation to buy and you're going to sail off into the sunset, but I just don't get why he's so pressed and why he's so bothered when he is not having the best season anyway.
Angelina Crook.
Sorry.
Wow. Angelina
I just
Crook.
think it's pathetic.
She just entered the chat. She's like, I'm not having this. He needs to get a life. He needs to build some Lego. He needs to do something.
Lego, great.
Wow.
Yeah.
From a Man United perspective, should they just brush that under the carpet and keep moving? Should they take action? Should someone have a word with him? Or you like, just it's irrelevant? Like, he hasn't left and done too well? Or do you think it's a damning indictment, Crookie, that players seem to leave and keep sort of having bad, distasteful things to say about our environment, and all of a sudden when they go, they seem to celebrate that they're out of that environment, whether they're playing good or not?
Yeah, I think that probably tells you more about Jadon Sancho than it does about Manchester United. I think there was an element of bitterness about it. Obviously, he didn't feel he was treated fairly by Erik Ten Hag. I think the evidence probably stacks up in Ten Hag's favour. But I think the key phrase that Angelina used there was self-awareness. This is a guy who is paid very well. He's a multi-millionaire. He gets hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to be a Manchester United player, and he is still a Manchester United player. He's still on the books of United, albeit unless Chelsea have a complete fall from grace and end up in the bottom 5 or 6, he will be making a permanent move there. There are people who go out and work 15-hour days. You know, they might want some freedom from their day job. You don't need any freedom, mate. You get paid to do something you love. You're not doing it particularly well at this moment in time. I was speaking to Chelsea fans at Brighton at the weekend, and the vibe I got from them was that actually this is Jadon Sancho reverting to type. This is what we saw more often than not at Manchester United. He's not really putting up any trees. So I think it's a very strange take from him.
Do you think United should take action? Like, say,
it's pointless, isn't it? Yeah. He's an irrelevant, Jadon Sancho.
He'll just tweet about it probably and just say
he just makes it bigger.
He's not United's problem anymore, but I think, a lack of self-awareness certainly, and it also suggests that Rashford feels bitter about the way that it ended. They've obviously had private conversations that have now almost been brought into the public domain, but again, the body of evidence suggests that for the past 18 months, Marcus Rashford, for a multitude of reasons, has not been performing. So it's not the club treating him harshly, it's him letting himself down, as it was with Sancho.
Ryan, what did you make of the comments from Sancho? And we'll move on to Marcus Rashford shortly.
Do you know what? I think with something like Jadon Sancho, you have to ask yourself, did it shock you? Did that comment shock you? Did it surprise you? No, it didn't. It didn't shock me that he commented freedom. It didn't surprise me, which leads into the fact that we all know that he's got a bad attitude. We all know he's not been training well. We know why he's not playing for Manchester United at the moment, why he's gone out to Dortmund. They've not kept him. They've not decided to keep him. Now he's gone out to Chelsea, put the money in the bag at the end of the season. Thank you very much. It didn't shock me. It didn't surprise me that he's put the word freedom. It sounds very in line to what we already know about his character. So leave him to it. Let him comment on Marcus Rashford's post. It really didn't bother me.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm with you guys. I don't understand what he was trying to get at. Look, in their personal lives, clearly, like you say, they obviously express views that they can't wait to get out there. But to bring that into the public domain, when you are, like you say, still partly paid by Manchester United and you're trying to make a new career for yourself, I don't know what you think's going to happen. And for me, I just think sometimes as a fan base, I don't know, it gets too tribal about players who really aren't just doing enough. Like, in terms of their own application. Like, Jadon Sancho has been given many a chance. He was given a lot of flexibility and support by Erik ten Hag.
Yeah.
Do you remember when he got laid off for a little while?
Yeah.
Erik ten Hag allowed him to go back to basic. He went to Holland to go and find himself and there was probably things that are behind the scenes, again, that we're not privy to, that were private. And I support that.
Yeah.
And he comes back and I think he put a picture up, so you go, right, then he's ended up falling out with him because Eric's then deemed him, again, not doing what he's supposed to do, difference of opinion, fine. The way he's handled that, I've seen Ahmad being mistreated by Erik ten Hag. I've seen Amari Forson start a game against Fulham over Ahmad. I've seen Mazraoui start in the number 10 position away in Europe instead of Ahmad. And Ahmad, I think, has shown, actually, now look where the two of them are. One's taken their opportunity, stayed humble and just keep working. Just keep working until such times as you forget a move or you get into the team, and then you get your rewards. And I just think Jadon, he's got ability. Jadon Sancho has got ability. He's a good footballer. But what we've seen is just being a good footballer and just having ability is not enough. If you look at professional football, there's far more players that are, and I'm not disrespecting pros here, that are like average players who do all the basics and the same principles day in, day out than there are world-class players. Yeah. There's more players that walk past you in the street, wouldn't know who they are, and week in, week out, they just put it in and that's how they become good pros, than they are top Vinicius Juniors and Jude Bellinghams and et cetera, et cetera. So that shows you the main part of being a pro, a top pro, is application. Yeah. It's application. And I just don't think people like Jadon, and I've met him plenty of times, it's not a personal attack on his character. I just think, as a pro, I don't see the burning desire inside his belly. Like when he plays, I don't see him like working with that intensity. When it's nice, but when it's gritty, when it's ugly, he doesn't rise. And I just think there's so much made about, the socks are up, and he might be a little nutmeg, and it's nice, he's great touch, he's techie. Like, mate, if your application is not there, I don't care how good you are. And I think that's where we're at with Jadon. I mean, Marcus Rashford, though, did make his debut crookie. What did you make of it? Straight on, I saw him leap 7 foot in the air up to Danso for a big header. Then he starts getting the ball, taking the ball, the Villa fans are up. Came on at a good point in the game, 2-0 up as well.
Yeah.
Looked happy. Positives.
Yeah. Let's see where he is in 7-8 weeks' time, because Jadon Sancho made quite a positive impact early on at Chelsea. So it's about maintaining that level. Obviously, he's gone there with a point to prove. He's walked into a really good club, a brilliant dressing room, well coached. Obviously, a lot to look forward to in the second half of the season, both in terms of the Premier League, the Champions League, and obviously, for me, one of the dark horses for the FA Cup when the draw was made on Monday. I certainly didn't want to see Aston Villa come out of the hat, particularly away from home. But yeah, the jury will remain out on Marcus Rashford. He's got to do it over a period of time. He's certainly got to maintain those levels all the way through until the end of the season. Otherwise, Villa won't be activating that option to buy him.
No, and we'll be back to square one again with who's going to take Marcus Rashford. Just a quick one, actually. You are sitting in front of the Marcus Rashford shirt on our set, and we do need to change it. I don't want to ask Ryan because he's going to say garnacho straight away.
Because he's over there.
Garnacho's over there, tucked away.
Yeah.
Does garnacho need to be more prominent? Should that be Harry Maguire? Should that be Bruno Fernandes? Where is Bruno?
He's right behind you.
Bruno's behind me. Who are we going for this shirt?
Well, I know there's been a bit of talk in the green room about Amad Diallo, and I'm all in favour of that. But why don't we go a bit retro? Let's get the King there.
Oh, we could have seen that one coming.
It's not really in theme with the set. We haven't really got the legends.
We got Ronaldo behind Angelina.
Do we? Oh, yeah,
How come we got
that? Oh, you want an image. So we need an image of Cantona or a
Let's get an
shirt
image of Cantona.
Yeah, okay. Well, you come in on the weekend, get decorating, and then we can do that. That's fine. Right, okay. Let's talk transfers though, because there's been a little bit made on Casemiro, because obviously the window in Brazil hasn't closed yet.
No.
Give us some good news.
Any good news on that from your point?
Well, obviously it's a fairly well-placed Brazilian source who suggested that some talks have taken place in terms of finding out how much it would cost to get Casemiro to Flamengo. They've got a bit of time on their side because the window doesn't actually close until the 28th of February, so we've got another couple of weeks at least yet. I did speak to sources at United when this came out in South America, and they said there's been no club-to-club contact, but sometimes in this scenario the club could be the last to know.
Yeah.
If Casemiro gives the nod that he's willing to go, if Flamengo feel they can come up with the right package financially, then maybe that will advance. But obviously he's very well paid, isn't he? Clubs in Brazil can't afford to match those kind of wages, so I'd imagine Casemiro would have to entertain a pay cut to make this happen.
And that would be interesting to see if he does that. That's a tough one. And Miguel Delaney is reporting that Manchester United have a deal in place to sign Victor Gyökeres in the summer from Sporting. Your take on that? Any info on that?
It feels like a little bit of a curveball. I mean, obviously the connection is there between Ruben Amorim and Gyökeres, and we had this debate actually whether Gyökeres would be an upgrade on Højlund, and I was a little bit reserved on it because I think he's still to prove himself at the top level. There's a big difference, as we've seen, between the Portuguese League and the Premier League, but it also feels like a very expensive deal for United to do in the summer at a time when they're trying to cut costs, when they're trying to stay on the right side of PSR. And I think there will be other Premier League clubs, maybe with deeper pockets, who want to be part of this conversation. I think actually maybe there are other players at Sporting that Ruben Amorim would have higher up his list. So I'm intrigued because Miguel is a very well-connected journalist. But at the moment, I'm not all in on this.
Yeah, it does show exactly what we want, what we need. Obviously, he would fit the profile. Of course, you've got that worry of coming to the Premier League, can he still get the same numbers? But it is difficult. But some transfers we did see happen already, guys. One in the summer, one just now in January. Antony, couple of man of the match performances, Ange, for Real Betis. No, she's shaking her head. No.
Great.
No.
Good.
No. Not pleased, happy, pleased for him.
Listen, all these players that have gone out, I want them all to do well. I want Marcus Rashford to be scoring hat-tricks for Aston Villa. I want Antony to get every man of the match.
Is it not worrying that we're ruining these players?
We need to get these people.
Are we the common denominator here?
No, we need to get these people as far away from our club as possible. And let them play well so that we can get some money for them, because all of these, you look at someone like Antony, he's been at the club long enough to apply himself. It clearly just isn't working. No disrespect to Betis, but the pressure and expectation of playing for Manchester United versus a team who were, I think they're 11th in the league, so actually doing better than us. But, a team that it's not a Real Madrid, it's not a Barcelona, it's not an Atletico Madrid. There's nowhere near as much pressure, and maybe he's just one of those players that he was playing well for Ajax, he got that step up to one of the biggest football clubs in the world, and he just couldn't cut it. And maybe a team like Betis, again, no disrespect, but less pressure, less eyes on him, a different league, not a league that's nowhere near as intense. If that works for him, then maybe that's just the level that he's at, and I think that's okay. And I don't think we need to look at it of, oh, well, Man United messed up with him or something. I just think he couldn't cut it. I mean, how many games did we see in the Premier League, head in hands, just thinking, what is this guy doing? It just wasn't a match.
That is one thing about our fan base is really weird. It's more so online, but the revisionism that gets done is crazy.
Oh, we should have kept him. For what?
Listen, I've seen...
Virtually immediate.
Now, we never shy away from a debate on Inside Devils, and after Ryan and Ali McCoy's caused a little bit of a stir online with a feisty discussion on talkSPORT Bet's final third, we're going to open it up to our panel and talk about at what point does negativity from the mainstream Man United pundits go too far. This was your moment here, Ryan. You had a big say on this.
Yeah.
Cricky, for you, is there a crossover between criticism being too harsh and overcritical, and where it has a negative effect from Manchester United pundits? Or is it fair game for them because they've been there, they've done it, they've worn a T-shirt, and it's coming from a place of trying to raise the standards back to what they once were?
Yeah, I think for me it's the latter. To be honest, I don't see that anyone said anything unfair by his own admission. Ruben Amorim has labelled this Manchester United team probably the worst in history. So if you are a Roy Keane or a Paul Scholes, Gary Neville's gone a bit quiet actually since Jim Ratcliffe came in. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. But if you are one of those other two guys, I think you're entitled to give your opinion because you do hold the club to standards. And I guess the danger is living in the past. And Ryan's argument will be, well, this isn't the Manchester United team that dominated under Sir Alex Ferguson. But those are the standards that we all want the club to get back to. And those are the standards that people like Roy and Paul want the club to get back to. So I don't think their criticism is unfair. I don't think it is ever personal. And actually, if as a Manchester United player, you can't handle that type of constructive criticism, then you're probably not big enough to be wearing the shirt in the first place.
And I know you're, never afraid to speak your mind. Do you enjoy hearing, is it refreshing to you to hear our ex-pros who have seen it all, won it all, etc., talking quite candidly, or would you prefer them to not be as punchy with some of the things they're saying? Are you bothered by it? Do you think it has a negative effect on the players? It's
a hard one. I feel like there's a bit of a fine line with it. I think in the past when we had managers that weren't afraid that were afraid to speak up and maybe weren't as honest as someone like Ruben Amorim, it was refreshing to just kind of, you'd sit there sometimes in the Ten Hag era and be like, hang on, what did he just say? It's this, you almost wanted a bit of validation from somebody connected to the club, this isn't okay. And I think a lot of people leaned on that. And I think, it's maybe a little bit different now. Amorim himself is not afraid to be scathing. I get what Crooky's saying, that these are players that have been there, done it, won it all. They're allowed to have their opinions. I do worry about this whole thing of that was the old Man United. Unfortunately, this club is in a very different position now. It's a lot weaker, and you can't compare. But it is a tough one. Like you say, I always have an opinion on stuff. I am quite on the fence with this one. It's a hard one, but I think sometimes when you do have people launching these attacks after these terrible games, I just think it's more for the media. They're going to pick it up. That's going to be a load of articles. I don't know how players react to it. I don't think, oh, for God's sake, these old geezers that used to play, well, they just shut up for a minute. Or, you don't know. But I think sometimes when I don't think it helps sometimes, I would say. When we've been in really dark places, we all kind of know that it's bad. And I just don't think it really helps matters when they go in. If it's constructive, if it's somebody like Paul Scholes talking about the midfield and what they should do and how he thinks it should work and things like that, or Roy Keane or somebody else, or Wayne Rooney, if he's talking about potentially the forwards and etc. If it's going to be helpful and constructive, then I get it. But sometimes I just think when we're already in this tornado of drama and negativity, sometimes I don't like it.
I don't have a problem with it, if I'm honest with you. I don't have a problem with it. If pundits or ex-pros say something I disagree with, just as in the point, I'll just disagree with the point. But I think if we see them doing their jobs and sort of sugarcoating things and basically not saying that it's this bad because they used to play for us. Me as a fan, I'm going, Roy, but that's not you. I want to see you say the truth. Look, exactly. And when Ollie was going through it, right, he was out of his depth, right? And I'm not saying I wanted to hound him out and be disrespectful, but he was out of his depth as a manager at that level. But what we saw was because some of the Class 92 played with him and this, that. Well, Gary Neville even said it. He said, I'm not going to throw my mate under the bus on national TV. As a fan and as a viewer, I'm going, but you're paid to give your opinion on what's going on. I don't want to see that sort of conflict. I'm not saying be really, really scathing to your mate, but you can say, this is not going well. I think he's going to have to leave here or something. So, and for me, I just think if they're not if they're not honest enough, we go, well, they're just trying to protect what's going on. Yeah. And I think whether Man United win, lose or draw, we are the talk of the town. This is what we are. And I think it's scary times if we get too comfortable with the standards being low and people not wanting to raise them and the players going, I don't know. Then like, I'm with cricket, you're not cut out for it then. Because we have to get back there, we have to have some sort of recollection of like, this is what, because we've not seen it in so long, it's almost like we're going, we're not that anymore. So like, no, I want to get back to that. So I think it's refreshing.
It's because we've been there, seen it, and the team have done it on our watch. I was watching Friday night with my two boys, 12 and 10, and I got accused of being too miserable and too negative.
Well, I mean, I've got a bit.
But obviously, they're only used.
Took their Rashford shirts off them now. So
well, Rashford and garnacho were the Christmas presents. So luckily, one of those stayed. But they're only used to United being quite poor. Yeah. They haven't seen what we've seen. And I think it's the same for people like Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. There'll be a generation of pundits coming through who will probably point out, well, this isn't the Manchester United team that you played for.
I mean, Ryan, you made this initial point, and I saw in the comment section, loads of people disagreeing with you.
Off. Yeah.
Some people did.
Yeah. Who upset you?
It was you in the comments, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I put a bit in there. So he has no idea what he's about. Since you made that comment, do you still view it exactly the same? First of all, do you stand by that? And secondly, what was your main point about what you was trying to say?
Look, it was born out of a debate, exactly what we said there. Just offering devil's advocate and picking up points here and there. So look, I'll lay the gauntlet down now, and I'll add the caveat that I agree with the vast majority of what you've just said. These are Manchester United legends. Some of the best days of my life because directly these people are responsible for them. I have such an affinity towards them. And as pundits, I wouldn't even go as far as saying it's their fault. Because Manchester United, like you said, the biggest club in the world. We've had some of the best players in the world. So, look, I will put that there. And they are allowed to openly critique and criticise. Of course they are. But we've got to this point now where we need to be careful. We need to be really careful we don't live too much in the past. Because Liverpool, for example, 30 years without a title. And me growing up, that was my go-to response to a Liverpool fan. You're living in the past. That was and now we're getting that because former Manchester United players are everywhere. And it's, as I say, it's okay, which is great to see. And I'll listen and I'll click on these videos as well. But we need to be careful because inadvertently, this is piling on the misery because it's every week. It's every single week I have to, and it's borne out. Crookie said it's not personal for these guys. I think it is. I think it's extremely personal for your Roy Keanes, your Scholes and your Gary Nevilles because we're talking about the foundation they've built.
In what way? Oh, personal because they've been through it. So what it means to them on a personal. What do you mean personal as in to the individuals?
Yeah, I meant it's not personal against the
players.
players.
I see what you mean. But for them, not against the players, but for them, it's so personal to them because they are directly responsible for this foundation that we've built, the reason why we are Manchester United, all these league titles, all this success under Fergie, it's these players that are responsible. So, look, it's born out of passion. And again, I understand it. But it's every single week. It's berating.
But is it not every single week? Because that's a reflection of our team. Every single week, we're seeing the basics not being... We're seeing players not run. We're seeing players not apply themselves. We're hearing managers coming out and saying, he's not training properly. And then it doesn't... I do get the old school thing does kick in. Because someone like Roy Keane, he says... That can't compute in my brain.
Yeah.
He literally said over like, I can't talk about this. What do you mean he's not training properly?
This is my point. This is my point where that's a fair critique to make, but then it gets into a territory where there's a crossover, and this is where I was making my point, where I've been building it up for this. This is where there's a crossover where we're holding this new Manchester United that's in a transitional phase to the highest standards we'll probably
Good. But I think that's good though.
But
we'll never, basics. That's the basic standards.
We will never see a manager. But well, hopefully we will. But it's very unlikely we'll see a manager take the helm at Manchester United for 26 years, win 13 league titles, and win all these things. Now, the boss would have done this. We would have been had for this. Look, fine, that's okay. And it's okay to hear it every so often. Like I said, that's the point I've made. Look, and I carry it again.
Not every. You think every week
single
is
week,
too much.
We need to allow this new Manchester United to carve out its own success. And we won't... Look, again, this Manchester United DNA that I've referred to with Garnacho and players like that, for example, there has to be a point where we evolve past that. We're not going to be that old school Manchester United. We're not going to play the same way.
Do they want us to be the old school Man United, or do they want us to just have the standard?
I agree with
the
it's about
stuff.
basic standards.
Yeah.
I don't think Roy Keane and Paul Scholes sit there and say, well, you know, it's not like it was in our day. They're not as good as we were.
But they do, though.
But they're talking about basic standards, turning up for training on time, putting a shift in,
of course,
tracking your man,
that's fine.
running, moving the ball forward. How many backwards passes were there at the weekend?
I agree with that. And I agree with that. Look, it's like I said, sometimes it's necessary to critique, but it's unconsciously now, with Manchester United pundits there, we're living in the past. There's a crossover there. There is a crossover there. And we just need to be careful we don't do that too much, because I'll tell you something, it'll be 30 years gone and we still wouldn't have won a league title.
I just think, me personally, I don't think that the pundits saying what they're saying has any correlation with why this team's this bad.
Like, I think it piles onto the media narrative of misery.
I think the media narrative exists because
we're Man United.
We're Man United. Hated a dog, never ignored. That's just a fact.
Yeah. Well, look at this weekend. It's a TV game.
Always the story.
Tottenham against Manchester United is one of the big TV picks the weekend.
Yeah.
It's two bottom half teams.
It's 13th against 14th.
Friday night, United at home to Leicester.
Yeah.
Because it's Manchester United.
Yeah.
That isn't going to go away. So I'll go back to my point. If you can't handle that in that dressing room, go and play for someone else.
Yeah, look, agreed. And like I say, I agree with that. I agree with they need to do the basics. I agree they get called out by the legends from time to time. But frequent berating in this. If Manchester United lose, what's going to be the most viral clip? What's it going to be? It's going to be Roy Keane talking about we should have done this, we should have done that. Scholes saying we should have done this. Gary Neville on his podcast say back in my day we done this, we did this, the boss this, we wouldn't have. Look,
do you feel like them saying things like, oh well, the boss would have done this, the boss would have done that? You just feel like it's not constructive because it's like, well, he's not going to walk in and do it. So what's the point of us talking about what used to happen? Because this is a different manager.
Yeah, those references of like always going back to Sir Alex. I take that in terms of like Sir Alex, because that's one man who has the whole. He disguised how bad the Glazers were because he's so good.
Yeah. Totally different era of football.
Exactly. He's
do you think nowadays Fergie could have got away with throwing water bottles and all that kind of stuff and losing his head and all that?
Yeah, it's a different
It would have been
stratosphere.
handled by the media completely differently. It would have been a completely different game.
But that individual point of like, don't keep going, the boss this, that. And on the overlap, like I said, every week they have the sort of stories that are, it's really, I know it's for all clubs, but as United fans, when are on there, we can look back, oh wow, you hear the stories, Ollie goes on there. Great, I agree with that, that's fine. Don't keep referencing Sir Alex because there isn't going to be another that. I get that. But in terms of them being as scathing as they need to be, to talk about how basic standards are not being met on a week-by-week basis, because it's happening every week. So when we do go to Liverpool, I saw Roy Keane go, yeah, look, because they ran after him today. They got stuck into him. They like he said, they show a little bit of needle, as he says, So I don't mind that, because at the same time, when we do a bit all right, they also big us up for that. But most of the time, because we're so poor, and they're getting paid to give their analysis of what they've just witnessed, it comes out in, what was that?
I just think there's a nice balance that can be struck.
Yeah.
You can, like I said, I agree with the bare necessities of the game. I agree that they should call that stuff out, but I just think there's a nice balance that can be struck where there's not too much of a crossover into the past. We can allow this new Manchester United. If you base...
You can't have a future without having a past.
I agree with that. But then also, if you hold the present hostage by the past standards, the future won't be able to flourish.
Oof.
We're getting very deep.
I tell you what, that's...
I don't know where that came from.
Well, no,
I blacked out for a second there.
3, 2, 1, you're back in the room.
Yeah, I'm here. Back.
No, but that was good. No, but you're right. Do you know what? Both statements can be correct.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Let us know how you guys feel about that one. Is there... an over-reliance? Is it too much negativity from the pundits? Or has Ryan got a point? Now, before we preview the match against Tottenham on Sunday, we do want to mark the fact that today is the great Dennis Law's funeral. Dennis is rightly known as the king of the Stretford End and is a member of the United Trinity alongside George Best and Sir Bobby Charlton. Dennis will remain in Man United fans' hearts forever. And on behalf of us here, I'd like to send our best to his family and his friends. He is simply a legend of our football club. Now we need to take a look at a huge return to Premier League action as we take on Spurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Amorim's side are looking to avenge the awful 3-0 defeat back in September, as well as the dramatic 4-3 loss, which knocked us out of the Carabao Cup. We nearly brought that one back as well. But yes, I definitely want revenge for that 3-0 at Old Trafford. I mean, that could have been 8-9 that day. It was absolutely shocking. Yes, the overturned Bruno red card, but it wasn't much better before that when we had a full complement of 11. Crookie, you mentioned earlier in the show, it's still a Super Sunday game. It's 13th against 14th, mate. Wow. 2 points separating us. Massive game.
Yeah, huge.
Not even mid-table fodder. It's worse than that. 13th and 14th.
Yeah, and two teams in dire straits, really. I need United to win this game because I've been very scathing of Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou, and actually said on air on the day after both teams qualified for the round of 16 in the Europa League, they were joint favourites. I think United are now outright favourites for that competition. And I said if United played Tottenham in the final, I would back the United players to get the job done over Spurs. And Spurs fans have reminded me ever since they've beaten us twice this season. So I need the players to go out and put in a performance. And actually, psychologically, it could be important for that game further down the line, because you'd imagine at some point they will play each other in the Europa League. And if United go into that game having lost 3 times already this season, then that gives Spurs a bit of a mental edge.
Yeah, but then, it'll be the big one, be for Europe, and we'll be fine. We'll be fine if that happens. But I do take your point. This is a game that we certainly have to win. For you, Ange, we've been all right in the bigger games, especially away from home. You look at City, you look at Liverpool, you look at Arsenal.
Yeah.
We've turned in performances that we can look at, and we've said, I'll tell you what, there's some fight there, a little bit of quality when we've needed it, and we've got the right results in those games. Probably we should have beaten Liverpool as well. Does this fall into that category as well, of like you're a little bit more comfortable and confident in the bigger games against the more difficult teams, or do you see Tottenham as a bit of a bogey side? How do you view this one? It's
a tough one because you genuinely don't know what's going to turn up with Spurs, and I guess you could argue the same with Manchester United. Yeah, exactly. So it is difficult. I mean, on paper, Spurs are a bigger club, so Manchester United should be able to. This is more. We talk about the players only really showing up for the glamorous games. I guess this does kind of fall into that category of being more of a glamorous game. So, but I think it is. It's so important to get a win from this. Like you say, psychologically, I think that it could offer us a real boost. But I think it's hard because this Spurs side are so poor. You do not know. It could be a situation where we have it handed to us like we have before, or Man United could go in, get an early... the thing is, I think Man United have this issue with the lack of focus. I think we can start this game not like the Leicester game, essentially, where it's 45 minutes of them being half asleep. Then I think that we could do something in this game, but because this is 2 very poor, unpredictable sides, you just don't know how it's going to go.
I think that last bit as well. Yeah. Poor, unpredictable. These are some of the words Angelina's using to describe both these sides. Spurs, because, again, they do have a barrage of injuries. That's one understandable. But even before their injuries, for the back end of last season, when they had all their players, they were still playing poorly. So Ange is in all sorts of trouble. We're in all sorts of trouble because we've changed our manager halfway through the season, the system, etc., etc. We know all of that. Who's favourite? Do you worry about Spurs?
Do you know what? This is the thing. Like, I back up what Ange said there. There's so much jeopardy in this game because you don't know what Spurs are going to turn up. You don't know what Man United are going to turn up. So look, it might be a blockbuster. It might be a ball fest. Again, we don't know. But I'll elevate it to another level to say that Tottenham are unbeaten in the last 4 Premier League games against Manchester United. They've scored at least 2 goals in each of the last 4 against Manchester United as well.
7 in the last 2 games.
Yeah. So look, I don't think it'll be easy. It won't be easy. In fact, I'll go say it won't be easy. And Spurs are in a place, it's sad to say, but Spurs are in a place where they're looking to get back-to-back wins for the second time this season only.
We haven't done that once.
Exactly. This is the standard that we're talking about here. So look, I'm not going to take them for granted. I'm not going to, and they've still got players in that side that can hurt you. You can draw comparisons actually to where Andrew's in his second season to where Erik ten Hag was in his second season, just absolutely injury struck, wasn't it? So look, we'll see. But the stats suggest that Spurs will score and they're unbeaten in the last 4 as well. So.
I think Garnacho should play. If for no other reason than that, obviously Tottenham play with this high line. 100%. He's got the pace to get in behind them. Ahmad the same. So I think I'd like to see both of those.
Ahmad at right wing back or Ahmad at right 10?
Probably right 10, I think. You put Dalot on his actual right-hand side, Dorgu on the left. I mean, I wouldn't be averse to Ahmad as a right wing-back because obviously he's an attacking wing-back, but certainly Dorgu on the left. And as I say, he's experimenting with what to do up top. I think Xerxes can just, with justification, knock on his door and say, look, I deserve a start. But I wouldn't mind seeing Garnacho in that number 9 position, particularly up against that high line.
And if we lose... Does it show that we're actually worse than Spurs? If they beat us, they'll go above us again. At least he can say all these injuries, this, that, and the other. Ruben Amorim's comeback could be, I'm in my first season, barely bought a player. But what would it mean to lose this game?
I mean, I think like Ryan said with the stats and stuff, it's not looking good for us. I think that it would be, even though we're kind of similar in the table. Spurs are Spurs and we all have a laugh at watching them unravel and it just be chaotic. But I think with the amount of injuries that they've got, the fact that they, have been poor this season as well, I think it would be a massive kind of slash to our confidence to not be able to give a good account and try and get a win out of this game. I think, again, you would have to question the players' mentality to not be able to give this game a good go. But it would be bad. It would be a bad look.
Right, let's get the predictions locked in. Crookie.
We're not very good at these predictions.
We're not.
By the
We
way,
get them wrong all the time.
I think the last one I got right was Arsenal in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Let's go United 2-1.
Angelina?
I'm probably going to say the same. I think we will concede. I'm going to back a win, so yeah, I'll go 2-1, but we all know what I'm probably thinking.
Oh, gosh. Do you know what? I think there's more pressure under Ange Postecoglou, lest we forget that. I think that they'll be more nervous, to be honest with you. I'm going to go for a Desmond. I'm going to go 2-2. I think that'd be very fitting to where both clubs are at the moment, so that's where
I'm with you, Yeah. I think I've predicted 3-2 on another show, so I'm going to just flip-flop on that. I know. I just can't see it. We'll do something stupid. Please, guys, just win. Just win. Yeah. Anyway, honestly, we'll get to it. That's all we've got time for on this week's Inside Devils. A big thank you to Alex Crook, Angelina Kelly, and of course, Ryan Statman Douglas. And we'll see you on another episode of Inside Devils next week.